Today we have a great story of revenge where someone hides a shop owner's key. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, my crazy neighbor. I have a neighbor who is a general nuisance. She is pronounced to everyone that she is the tenant advocate, but she is the reason for most of the complaints in the building. She stalks people, confronts them with accusations, and then tells the building manager it didn't happen or she was talking to someone else, but then she calls the police and reports that she was attacked by the building manager. For context, on her social media, she says she's a transcended being who can take herself to the fifth dimension to avoid her many enemies who are attacking her. She accuses other tenants of doing to her what she's actually doing to them. Anyway, the petty thing I've done is painted a bunch of rocks with the evil eye on them to place around the building. She'll go right ballistic, but I'm pretty sure it's not illegal. So, short of hoping that they build up enough of a record with the local police and whatnot that eventually they're forced to act, what can you do in the situation where somebody's kind of acting out in a way that you feel is indicative of maybe mental health stuff, but you're not related, you're not close to them? I don't know, do you just have to grind it out and kind of deal with it, or do what OP does and try to antagonize them further? Fit Marionberry 3008 commented, "Not being on meds and loneliness will do some weird things to people. People being disconnected from reality is panic attack triggering in myself, and I got anxious by the end. That's mental health crazy. At least it's nuisance level crazy? Your petty revenge is hilarious though." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of revenge, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. That said, our next story is, I purposely walked into a woman who wouldn't let me off the elevator. Staying in a hotel for a week for a work thing, there's this woman who I encountered when attempting to get out of the elevator. She was either with her boyfriend or her husband. Elevator doors open, she's right there, and she just zooms in. I have to jump back to avoid being mowed over. Her partner waits for me to exit. Well, the next day, I'm leaving around the same time. Elevator doors open, and there she is. Without thinking, I'm like, not today, and with the same energy, I power walk out, shoulder checking her. I'm shorter than her, so it's more like shoulder chest check, but she stumbles and gives me a dirty look. I just smiled and continue on. I saw her one more time in the lobby and just smiled at her in the face of her glare. Where I live and what I do on a day-to-day, I don't really use elevators too often, but I can still remember the intense hot flash embarrassment from the last time I did use one and forgot to be courteous enough to let the people off that were going to get off. It would be understandable enough if they did what they did initially and then apologized after the fact, after they realized how they acted, but to not apologize and then after the fact be in a position where OP could shoulder check them, it's kind of warranted. I feel like it's pretty warranted. Edalaw commented, I hate idiots that jump into lifts or trains when there's people that want to get out. Common sense to let people out first. Acidic Fritch commented, these people are the same people who wait in front of the luggage belt at the airport and block the way for the people who do have a luggage on the belt already. Our next story is so petty I don't even remember the offense. 40-ish years ago, I had a job as a bag boy at a supermarket. I had a coworker that I didn't get along with. I can't remember why, but we just had a slightly antagonistic relationship. I don't even remember his name. He was about the same age as me, both in our late teens. I did know that his parents were very much against tobacco use, and that as far as I knew, he didn't use tobacco. One payday after I'd picked up my pay for the week, I bought myself 2 packs of cigarettes. I've since quit smoking. As I was exiting the store, I saw this guy standing in line to get his paycheck. His father was with him. A sudden evil idea struck me. As I was passing him, I stopped and held out one of the 2 packs of cigarettes I'd just bought and said, "Here's that pack of cigarettes I owe you." He immediately denied that I owed him anything, but his father looked pretty upset at the idea that his son was a smoker. It was definitely a jerk, spur-of-the-moment move by me, but I still kind of chuckled to myself when I remember the look on my coworker's face. I don't know if this is too obscure or old of a reference these days, but this story reminds me so much of the movie Click. It's an Adam Sandler movie, and there's a neighbor O'Doyle redhead kid that's really annoying and flashing how their parents bought them all this stuff. Later on, the Adam Sandler character's outside celebrating something, smoking a cigar, and the O'Doyle kid's there. The kid's mom comes out, and the Adam Sandler character says, "Oh, I took this cigar from the kid. He was puffing it like a chimney." Cue the parent freaking out and the kid getting in trouble and whatnot. I mean, it's really simple and you feel like it shouldn't work, but I guess it does. I guess really it comes down to how much your parents actually want to trust you. Our next story is Left Group Alone Without Translator. November 2024, I went on a trip to Brazil with friends, Natalie, Kylie, and Gabe, Kylie's husband. There was a music festival that I wanted to visit for years, but never took the opportunity solo because I have more fun in groups, and being in a foreign country with thousands of people wasn't the best scenario for my socially awkward self. Anywho, I explained this to Kylie and Natalie and showed them the layout of the music artists, and they were ecstatic to go. The city is one that's near to my heart, as I'd studied there for a year and became the first spot where I could be myself and learn to not care what other people think. It's a place with beautiful beaches, views, and my host family. I was excited to introduce this place to my friends, and anytime I brought up a place to visit, everyone would say, "Oh my god, I can't wait to see it in person." There was never any hint of going our own ways, and we were excited to spend our trip together. In the group, I was the only person who spoke Portuguese and asked if there was anything they had interest in visiting. Natalie and Kylie brought up an island they found on Google that was off the coast, among some other things. Due to the island being heavily monitored due to marine preservation, the only way to get there is by fishing boat. I spent days on WhatsApp being the middleman and booking our trip, as the fishermen wouldn't be able to communicate with them in English. Everything was set, we had a date, and we were ready to go visit on Sunday morning. I sent them all the details in English. This is important later. Bear with me, the petty revenge is coming. Upon our arrival in Brazil, I offered to translate as needed. When we would go to any place with a menu, Kylie would pull out an app that translated photos. Despite the app, I still offered to translate. During our first day, Kylie made the comment, "I travel internationally all the time. You really just need to use Google Translate." It's not fully accurate, but between that and gestures, everybody understands just fine. You really don't need a translator. That comment definitely made me feel off, but I shrugged it off and still offered. Saturday, we planned to travel out of town so they could visit a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school. They both have 10 years experience. This is important later. We would Uber there and back and split the cost. The plan? Only spend 4 hours max and then go to the last day of our music festival at night. When it was time to go, they didn't want to. I was told I could go back without them, but didn't want to leave my friends in a foreign city, so I declined. 8 hours later, we finally started to head back. During the 2-hour car ride back, I was told they didn't want to go out anymore because they were too tired. I was pretty frustrated with losing half a day where I chose not to go either, as I felt I wouldn't have had fun with the mood I was in, and the traffic there just wasn't worth it. We got back to our B&B, and Kylie and Natalie come out wearing jewelry and dresses. I wasn't put off because they're the type to trade clothes a lot and go all out in it. Next thing I know, Kylie goes, "All right, Opie, our Uber's here to take us to dinner. Have fun at the festival." I'm immediately confused and remind her I wasn't going. I still have no idea where the confusion was. Again, I got frustrated and expressed it verbally. I told her the communication had been terrible over the past few days, and I was over it. They told me they were going and I could meet up with them. After they left and I got ready, I called my own Uber to the restaurant. The whole time, I was reminded that Google Translate and gestures are all that's needed. Here's where the petty revenge comes in. Sunday morning, 4 hours in advance, I realized that the plans we made to eat with my host family and the places to visit weren't going to happen. I needed to put my mental health first and get away for a day and get what I wanted out of the way. I was told they didn't need a translator and they had enough fight training to take care of themselves. I messaged them that I decided to hold off on the island trip as our full trip was nearing a close and I felt that I might not have the opportunity to visit some places. I left to go to the beach, and the first text I get is asking all the details. The night before, I received a text in Portuguese confirming all the information, so I forwarded that to them. They asked about the boat info, and I was lucky enough to be able to forward over a second text I received with that info from them in Spanish. Kylie, Natalie, and Gabe were all left on their own where they don't speak the language with texts they could decipher in Spanish and Portuguese. Kylie was an expert in gestures and Google Translate, so I'm sure she could figure it out. That night, I asked Natalie how the trip was, and they said they missed the boat because they didn't realize how far away it was. Guess she missed how to use Google Maps? Maybe not the best revenge, but I felt it was just. I mean, considering they immediately blew up the plans and went rogue, I'm glad that OP took a day for themselves to prioritize what they intended to do on this vacation. In a way, it kind of salvages it because at least they can walk away knowing they did something they wanted to do. The Earth Angel 55 commented, "You invited them to go and they made you feel like they wanted to go and enjoy the trip with you, but instead made you feel like they didn't want to be around you. They had it coming. Good for you. Petty is always good served hot." Our next story is, don't lie about leaving kids in your car in the Texas heat to get a parking spot. A few years ago, during COVID, I had the pregnant wife and 3 kids with me as we stopped to get groceries at HEB. Not an ideal situation to have the entire circus together for grocery shopping, but it was what it was. It's summer, it's Texas, and it's hot. Think 95 degrees Fahrenheit in the sun and 135 Fahrenheit plus in a car with the windows up. As we look for a spot in the very busy parking lot, a guy coming down the aisle in the other direction cuts in front of us and parks in the expectant mother or with children parking. Giant jerk. We park a lot further down the aisle, and as we're walking to the store, this guy gets out of his car. Car's off, windows up, and starts walking in front of us to get to the store. I'm not sure why it took him 5 minutes to get out of the car after being in such a hurry to park, but I figure it's consistent with a narcissistic personality. I say to him while pushing the stroller, "Hey, that parking is really for pregnant women and for families with small children?" He says, "Yes, the kids are in the car," in a very dismissive way, making it very clear he thought that was an okay thing to say. But I decide to play along with his BS and reply, "It's too hot for anyone to be left in a car without air conditioning. That's not safe." We're getting close to the front of the store. He waves me off and says, "They'll be fine, don't worry about it." I decide he has just warranted some payback, as my wife and I are trying to keep 2 kids, 4 years and 2 years, from running in front of cars for 300 feet further in a very busy parking lot, while pushing another in a stroller than we would have if he had not taken the space. Almost as if those spaces have a purpose. As we enter the store, there's a manager near the front, and I approach her and tell her word for word what this gentleman said to me and point him out. I tell her I didn't see any kids in the car, but I didn't look closely. I thought someone should know about the exchange. The grocery store chain ranks just below a religious institution in Texas, and they take their community involvement, sports, celebrity commercials, PR, and image seriously. They're not going to ignore a possible life-threatening issue. Kids and pets in cars in Texas summers can end in less than 15 minutes. The store typically has a police presence on site, more for peace of mind and criminal deterrence than anything else. If this guy actually did have kids in the car, I have a responsibility to report it. My belief of whether or not what he said is true is frankly inconsequential. All I had to do was repeat exactly what he said to the right person, and his words would be his own undoing. Manager says, "Thank you, we'll look right into it." And I decide whatever happens, I've only repeated exactly what he said to me and was honest that I didn't see any kids in the car. We finish our shopping about 25 minutes after entering, and as we're walking to our car, Giant Jerk is standing next to his car and animatedly speaking to a constable that has a very disapproving look on his face. I smile and think to myself, he'll be fine. Don't worry about it. If you're gonna be that jerk and you're gonna take that parking spot, it honestly would have been better if he just gave OP the cold shoulder and didn't say anything. Lord knows with a narcissistic person like that, of course they had to open their big fat mouth though. It's like a critical fail on a deception check. Having Fun 922 commented, "The placement of those spots is stupid. They put them in the front. Wouldn't it be better next to a cart corral so you could put your kid in the car and put the cart away 5 feet from the car?" Competitive Movie 816 commented, "I always thought this as I was shopping with 2 littles under 2 years old. I would rather walk a little farther and me close to the cart corral 100%. Our next story is, "A heartfelt thank you for ruining my mental health. Enjoy your decorative herpes." A few years ago, I worked for an absolute jerk. I stayed in that job for 6 years, far longer than I really should have, but I kind of needed the job at the time and truly loved what I did. It was a great learning opportunity as I ended up learning a lot about business above and beyond my original role. I ended up as one of the most senior members of staff. Not bragging, this was a small business, so in reality what this meant was more work and responsibility for pennies more pay. Needing this job for some level of financial stability, I did my best to ignore the condescending behavior, bullying, manipulation, micromanaging, guilt-tripping, advantage talking, etc., all from the boss. They were an absolute delight. Nevertheless, as I was their most competent and trusted employee, there was a terse civility between the two of us. Although I'm sure they did plenty of benching about me behind my back, because they certainly did about everyone else. When I finally resigned, much to their annoyance, but I was literally done at this point, I wanted to inconvenience this POS for the way they'd impacted my mental health. I had to be careful about it though, because taking someone to court over some slight genuinely wasn't beyond them. I'd literally seen them do it. So I opted for the pettiest option I could at the time. I bought a thank you card and wrote a heartfelt message thanking the boss for the opportunity, yada yada yada. Who's going to suspect a thank you card is a freak you, right? Reddit, when I tell you this card was the glitteriest card money could buy, I am not joking. Think that super fine sand-like glitter that spreads everywhere when you just look at it? The entire design on the front of this card was made in glitter, and the residual glitter from the manufacturing line clung to the inside and back of the card. So much glitter. On my last day, the boss wasn't there, because of course they weren't. So I left the card in their office, said goodbye to all of my colleagues, who I was genuinely going to miss because they were all great people, and left on my merry way, satisfied that the creative herpes that I'd left behind on that desk would have the required effect. I've been out of that place for 2 years, and one of my former colleagues has told me that they're still finding glitter about the place. I take great satisfaction knowing that in some stupid, insignificant way, I've caused that jerk at least a minor annoyance. You know, in a weird way, I don't know what it says about me, but I would almost enjoy the fact that, like, you still left a mark at that place. Like, I don't know if you left a mark in the way that they handle their processes or, like, files that may still be in your name or something, but knowing that there's still specks of glitter all over that place directly resulting from you, it's like a weirdly comforting feeling to me, the idea of, at least in some place like that, there's some kind of memorable thing of yours still left. SVU fan commented, I was so confused by the title before I clicked, so I had to stop and think about it for a second. I love dabbling in crafts, so I thought about it. What's the one universal dislike in the crafting world and is dubbed the herpes of crafting? Why, glitter, of course. So I clicked and I was correct. Ha! Perfectly petty and well executed. OP responded commenting, why thank you. Also a fan of all things craft related, so I knew of its reputation, and when I saw that card, the plan was hatched and I just knew it was perfect for what I had in mind. Something that would be perceived as an innocent gesture of thanks, but would be a pain. This next story is, my disrespectful leech of an internet addict brother shut his room door in my face while I was speaking, so I shut the internet off. I pay for the internet and he pays for nothing in our house. He's 26-year-old, male, and he has no job, doesn't go to school full-time, and has internet addiction. To top it off, my single mother is sick of him saying that he's going to graduate from his bachelor program in 3 years for the past 4 years. He's taking a decade to do a 4-year program. He contributes nothing to this house. On top of that, he doesn't answer us when we call him for help or reply when we speak to him half the time. He makes excuses half the time to not eat with us, not go anywhere with us, not help us when we need help around the house. And worse than this, he speaks in a condescending manner to everyone around him because he uses psychobabble to pretend he knows what he's talking about and acts as if he's better than everyone and more knowledgeable. I'm sick of the condescending attitude. I was speaking to him, and instead of answering me, he closed the door of his room. So I went into the app that controls the Wi-Fi and turned off the connections to his devices. He told mom, and she started screaming at me about how she's losing it because her own kids can't get along, and if she wasn't there, we would probably end each other. So now he's packed his crap up and left the house and will be living with his friend or with my aunt, who has always enabled him. Out of my hair at last. I mean, clearly the problem here is everybody around him enabling him. OP's taking this like crazy staunch position by turning his internet off. How about sending him a bill? How about saying that he has responsibilities that he can't just neglect, refuse to do? He would rather pack up and move out and find the next person that would let him get by with doing nothing than what? Help sweep the floor or something? Dapper Doll commented, I do sincerely apologize if this sounds offensive, but your mother is an enabler. She very likely just lets him get away with his BS and gave in to his demands because it was easier, but his behavior and refusal to be a productive adult are due in no small part to how he was parented. You just parented your idiot brother, and she screamed at you for disrupting the status quo. You had the nerve to give him consequences for his rude entitlement. Things might be tense for a bit, but I hope your mom realizes how peaceful your home has become when your brother is no longer there to cause problems and drain resources without any contribution. OP responded commenting, "I'm so at peace myself that my positive energy will revive hers as well over time." No worries, that doesn't sound offensive, it's the truth. No one gave him any consequences in his life, and when I finally did, everyone lost their minds. Our next story is free breakfast for a limited time this morning for loud hotel neighbors. A few weeks ago, our family was staying at a hotel resort for a relaxing weekend. Unfortunately, we got roomed underneath a herd of buffalo, or a family of 6, I couldn't tell which. As we put our kids to bed, we hushed them and reminded them we were in a hotel with other guests, so we could be as courteous as possible. Not the buffalo family above us. For hours into the night until well after midnight, they were banging and slamming things in the room above, and while I can sleep through almost anything, and the kids were exhausted and asleep, I knew it was steaming my wife, and that was making me more and more angry. Unhappy wife, unhappy life. Anyway, we all managed to finally fall asleep. However, my superpower is needing little sleep. I get up every day at 5 a.m. without an alarm clock. Sure enough, the next morning, a few 4 hours later, I woke up like clockwork, and I instantly had my revenge. Going down to the elevator core, I located a house phone and dialed their room, 6, and the room number, the room directly above ours. It rang 5 or 6 times with no answer. I hung up and was feeling a little guilty and about to give up when I remembered I wasn't getting laid today because of these clowns, said freak it, and rang back again. This time, a groggy female answered the phone, like barely. "Hello?" she croaked into the phone. In my most chipper voice, I said, "Good morning. This is the front desk with your morning wake-up call. Are you awake?" I hear confusion on the other end. "We have a special thank you gift for families staying with us today. Free breakfast buffet and admission to the water park today. However, it is first come, first served, and you and your guests must claim your award at the front desk in the next 30 minutes. More confusion, and I thanked her and hung up. Next, I camped out in the lobby to wait and see what happened. Sure enough, about 20 minutes later, a train of groggy, half-dressed family members come down to the front desk, looking annoyed, sleepy, and did I see hope in their eyes? As soon as they hit the front desk, it got heated. The mom demanding to see the on-duty manager, and the manager trying to explain that they didn't call and don't offer that. It must have taken 5 minutes to figure out it was a prank and sulk back to the room. I left and went to get some coffee and enjoyed the rest of my morning. As long as you can figure out the number for that room, it's pretty ingenious. I mean, you're absolutely going to ruin their morning, especially when this groggy family has been up past midnight banging sounds, whatever, all night. I don't know, maybe it's the kind of family that just has to go and jump on the hotel bed all night or something, I hope. Polish by Proxy commented, "Back in 2005, I was on the road and staying at a resort hotel that also had a loud party bar. My room was at the far end of a long hallway. I worked all Friday night until midnight installing heavy servers and had an early flight out the next morning. I was exhausted. I finally got to sleep after the thumping of the music from the club stopped at 2 a.m., just drifting off. My door slams open and the overhead light flips on and I hear a man yell, 'Hey, there's someone in our bed!' Then I hear a drunk woman say, 'Crap, this is room 114, we're in the wrong room.' They slam out of the room with no apologies for the heart attack they gave me. I then hear them loudly enter the next room on the headboard side of my room and loudly continue to party, talk and do what people do when they're out partying until 4 a.m. I finally hear sweet, sweet silence for about 45 minutes until my alarm sounds for my early flight home. I proceed to pack my bags and then set the alarm again, top volume, to go off 5 minutes after I left. I hope they enjoyed their morning alarm that they couldn't help but hear because I clearly heard all their bedroom activities and pillow talk. P.S. I wasn't sure if I hadn't latched the door properly due to my exhaustion, or if the front desk didn't rekey the keycard properly, but I never forgot to latch the chain or manual lock again. Our next story is key? What key? I was a senior in high school in the 70s and had a summer job at a clothing shop in a mall. It was my second summer working there, and I was trusted with closing up the store. We would always pull the metal gate down to close off the entrance to the store and hide the key in the corner right under the edge of the gate. That way, the opening shift person could open up the store, as there was only one key to pass back and forth among the staff. The manager kept his on his key ring. The manager decided to hire his niece Katie, and gradually my hours started getting cut down while hers increased. I was finally down to under 20 hours a week when I'd started out full-time, and I complained. My manager told me if I didn't like it, too bad, I could quit. So I quit and found another job at another store in the mall. I was still mad about the situation though. I bided my time for a few weeks until there came one evening when both Katie and I were working the closing shift at our respective stores. I puttered around for about 20 minutes until I was certain she had locked up her store and left. I locked up my store, casually walked past hers, and swiftly scooped up her key from its hiding place. Yep, it was still there. I threw it in the trash can just outside the entrance doors on my way to my car in the parking lot. This was in the 70s when security cameras were uncommon, unless in places like banks and jewelry stores. No one saw me or what I did. The next morning, I opened up my store, and I had the distinct pleasure of seeing my former place of employment stay closed until noon while all the other mall shops were open. Finally, the manager made it over and opened up the shop with his one existing key. Turns out he was out of town and had to come home early to do this. He later came over and angrily asked me if I happened to know anything about the missing key. I got to smile sweetly and say, "My goodness, no. Sounds like Katie needs to be more responsible." You could try to go high road and say like morally it's just not the right thing to do and whatnot. But I can't really blame OP, especially at that point in their life when they're just trying to get by, they're working a mall job, and you got stomped out because of nepotism with Katie. Our next story is Scratch That Itch. I lived in one of a 6-pack set of apartments situated in a quiet beachside town, partway between the beach and the local caravan park. Living so close to the caravan park proved to be far less problematic than I expected it to be, with nearly all the residents behaving themselves. Except for the kids. Over the long Christmas holiday season, I'm in the southern hemisphere, so it's summer, the kids would eventually notice there was a swimming pool at the rear of our complex. And work out they could jump the beachside brick wall on their way back from the beach in the evenings, have a swim to wash the sand and salt off of themselves, and then leave through the gate to walk down the driveway and arrive back to their caravan refreshed and clean. This didn't actually bother me too much because they were usually trying to not draw attention to themselves, so were quiet and secretive, and by the time they discovered the free pool, it was nearing the end of the holiday anyway. Then one year, one of the kids must have been a return visitor because they were into it right from the start, and within a week, I had kicked them out a couple of times because they were just being noisy and destructive. But they just got worse. We lived in the rearmost apartment, and we started noticing our beach towels we would hang up after a swim started to go missing overnight. Then we made sure we brought them inside in the evenings. Then we actually lost a set of bed sheets one night, and a couple of other residents were also losing towels. We did find a bunch of towels that looked suspiciously like ours on a communal line at the van park, so it was obvious what was happening. We're only halfway through the holiday season at this stage, so it was time to nip this in the bud. First stop, the thrift store, and bought some old towels. Second stop, the local surfboard manufacturer. "Hey mate, mind if I wipe your fiberglassing benches and floor down with these towels?" He did one better. He emptied his fiberglass off-cut bin onto them. Third stop, home, where I hung up the towels on the clothesline. 2 mornings later, I woke up and noticed the towels were no longer on the line. I went for a walk and retrieved 4 of them scattered along the road to the van park and dumped them in the van park bin to avoid collateral damage. As expected, no more towels went missing that season, but even better, they either stopped using the pool completely or were at least respectful enough that we never noticed. For anybody that may not know what the fiberglass stuff would do, basically if they got all that stuff on the towels and then they wipe themselves with the towels, it's basically like sticking yourself with a bunch of microscopic pinpricks. You have this itchy, scratchy, but almost impossible to get off of you feeling that when applied to a towel that is then used on their whole torso is going to be like actual torture for a while. WastePie912 commented, "Similar but not as painful, a friend used to keep beer in a cooler on his back porch. Local kids began stealing them, so he filled a few empties with recycled beer and put the caps back on. No more beer thefts." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.